she got a stroke in the first surgery, and
Oh, she did.
so she was had aphasia, right? Like couldn't really find words, and also was paralyzed on the right side. So the option of going to a clinical trial on a weekly basis, or twice a week, or once a month, whatever the framework has been, is sometimes not possible. And I think having this quality of life versus whatever is possible scientifically is always something only you and your family can make in the end. And then I think this is more like this is. I would really like to put emphasis on this, because it's not always what is possible. It's always what makes the most quality of life in the end. And to discuss this very thoughtfully, and discuss this through with everyone involved is very, very important. To get something that's not only feels right, but it's also right for the person going through the GBM.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 10 of the Game on Glio podcast for season 5. We're entering October. This is always a hard time of year for me, and a hard transition season for me, because this is the month that Mike died. And so it comes with a lot of reminders and a lot of grief, some triggers, remembrances. And it's hard to believe that it's 5 years that he's now gone. 5 years that he passed away. Time goes in a blink of an eye. And it also feels like it's moving so slowly. And my guest and I today, we talk about this idea of duality, this idea of being able to feel two things at once, having joy and feeling grief at the same time. It's this idea of you can feel this and this. You can have this be present and still feel this missing part of you, or this sadness inside of you. But with that, and we talk about this heavily in today's episode, there's also this idea of being present, being grateful for the moments that are right in front of us. And I feel that as more time goes on, as we get back to some sense of a new normality after losing our partners and our spouse, that we start to get back into that routine of just plowing through our day, getting through to the next moment, and we forget to stand still. We forget to be present. We forget to be joyful, or to find those moments. And I think what we need to do is also appreciate the gift of getting older. I've had moments, and I've had family members, I've gone through this, where my Nona used to complain all the time about getting older, about everything she was experiencing. And that culture, the era that they grew up in, that was just kind of part of their mentality. But I found in my own journey that getting older is a gift. And when we are allowed to grow older, it's going to come with aches and pains. It's going to come with joint problems and perimenopause and menopause and heart stuff and possibly osteoporosis and moving slower, or our eyesight changing. But most of those things are fixable things. And it also means that we have been given the gift of aging. And I want to read a great quote. It's actually by Cindy Crawford, that talks to this perfectly. She says, "This idea of getting older is daunting and intimidating and not that fun. But recently I shifted to, I have the privilege of getting older." And I really like that, because it's easy to spin off into the negative, as opposed to, aren't we lucky? We're here. We get to get older. I think it's a lot easier to see yourself getting older if you're happy in your life or if you're doing meaningful work and if you're contributing to life in a way that makes you feel good about yourself. This idea of, aren't we lucky to be getting older? I think that's something that we all need to remember. I think it's something that we take for granted. And so we talk about this heavily in today's episode. I'm so grateful to have our guest on today. I'm hoping that this gives you all a bit of purpose. And I hope you all remember that no matter what is going on in our life, outside of dealing with somebody who might be battling a grave disease, which is not something any of us would be lucky for or grateful for, there's a lot we can learn from going through the experiences that we go through, and it helps to shape us, and it helps to continue teaching us empathy, but it also helps us to appreciate the chances that the rest of us get that are left behind to get older. And this life can be such an amazing blessing. It offers so much that we can look forward to. And how lucky are we? Even if we are the ones that are left behind and our loved ones are now gone, we get to keep going in their absence. We get to carry them with us and take the lessons that we've learned from them going forward in the privilege of aging and getting older. And that speaks to staying present in the moment. So as we come up on the 5-year anniversary of Mike's death, that is something that I am grateful for. Everything that he taught me, everything that our journey together gave me, as far as empathy, as far as growing emotionally and spiritually, and how lucky am I to still be here? How lucky are you to still be here? When we come back, our guest, Robert Marx, joins us for a really empowering and meaningful conversation. So stay tuned. We will be back after a quick word from one of our premier sponsors.
This season of the Game on Glio podcast is sponsored by GT MedTech and GammaTile Therapy. Learn more at GammaTile.com. This season is also sponsored by Imvax, personalized, whole tumor-derived immunotherapy. Learn more at Imvax.com. This episode is sponsored by Plus Therapeutics, power and precision in radiotherapeutics. Learn more at respect-trials.com and plustherapeutics.com. This episode is sponsored by Cypris Therapeutics, where nature meets next-generation cancer therapy. See what's next at cypristx.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to episode 10 of the Game on Glio podcast. This is a big month for us because it is October and it's the anniversary of my husband's passing. And I'm really grateful to have on somebody that I've gotten to know over the course of the last year and who has been following my journey, and I've started following his. His name is Robert Marx. He's an amazing individual and actually threw me a couple of interesting updates. So we're going to be talking about those today. He is an aviation professional and a nonprofit leader. He's extremely active in his community, which I absolutely love. Drawn from his experience when his own partner was diagnosed with glioblastoma, he now advocates for better support systems for caregivers and promotes open conversations around illness, death, and grief with just a hint of humor, which I love, because if you can't have humor in these very heavy topics, then what's the point? So, Robert, thank you so much for joining us today. And technically, you hail from Germany, but you are currently in London, and but you've also just moved to the Netherlands. So you are quite the traveler. we shall
For the
say.
European citizen, yes.
Yes, a true European citizen. Let's dive right into when your wife was diagnosed. How old was she when she was first diagnosed?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. She was 32, and it did completely caught us off guard. We had no warning signs. There was no family history, nothing. And I know that when we talk about those things, there most of the time is no family history, and this is not something you can directly pass on. So yeah, it was just life changing from day one to the next day.
It's at 32 years old. I mean, it was when my husband was diagnosed at 44. 32 is even younger, and I've met people in their 20s. I don't think anybody, when you're that young, I don't think that's something you can ever say, you know, wow, we saw that coming, or we had a feeling. And it's hard, like you said, you know, there's no genetic component, there's no rhyme or reason for why this picks and chooses the people that it does. And it makes it so hard to contend with, why did this just happen? With some cancers, you can say it runs in the family, there's family history. We thought maybe we'd escape it, but it happened. With this one, that's just not the case.
True. And yeah, to be honest, I mean, I just mismatched. It's 29 when she got it, so it was in her 20s, and 32 when she died. Eventually,
Oh, wow.
glioblastoma.
She was 29 when she was originally
29,
diagnosed.
yeah.
Wow. Oh my God, that breaks
So
my
that's, but
heart.
as you mentioned, it's like it's always too early, right? I mean, if it's in your 60s, in your 50s, in whenever it is, it always takes a
Yeah, it doesn't
person
seem to be
too soon.
something other than John McCain, who was our
Yeah,
past. It was probably, you know, like he was in his 80s. Other than that, it's like, you know, everybody's just too young for this. And so she made it 3 years
yeah,
before.
26 months eventually.
Okay.
So I feel like being very thankful and also incredibly lucky, because especially compared to the typical prognosis of GBM cases, right?
Mhm.
So we could spend time traveling in a wheelchair. We could spend time fulfilling her last wish to New Zealand with like with a doctor on board, with people supporting us, with the crowdfunding. So those moments we could spend together, and also like a last 5 months. And I know this is quite different to the US. Is for us the hospice care situation. So you can just you just move in a double bed, like a hotel, and then you can stay and have gin tonic without alcohol if you feel like it, and have a bonfire if you like. So this was definitely a very awkward but comfy situation.
First of all, what a great way to describe such a really horrible journey. You make it seem almost peaceful in a way, which eases me a little bit, because I don't think everybody gets to have those experiences when they're walking through a diagnosis like this. But you touched on something that I would love to dive into a little bit, because the healthcare system in Germany is very different than here in the States. And we do have hospice. It's not quite that peaceful and relaxing and quaint. um, but when she was first diagnosed, how hard was it? Was it really difficult to get an MRI? Do you have to go through like an insurance process where they have to approve it and they need reasons why you want it done? What's the process like over there medically? Because I know in other areas like Scotland, for example, Canada, getting an MRI can be a huge feat, because it's also an open healthcare system. And so there's no priority over one versus another. So it could take weeks to months to really get a full diagnosis of what's going on, where here in the States, our healthcare system is very different. And so you can do an emergency request and get an MRI within a matter of days, or like a matter of a week, and then build insurance or go back to the insurance later on if you have to. So what is it like over there?
So basically, yeah, MRIs are relatively accessible in Germany. So it's
Wow.
usually also within days, because we do have like this general healthcare system where everybody pays in, everybody gets paid out. It's not just social welfare or social aid, but I think normally if you have something like you feel a pain, or you have something your general practitioner would recommend to have an MRI, then it
Hmm.
definitely does take up to a couple of months to get.
Oh,
But then
okay.
obviously for if you're in an emergency room, if you're a younger patient and pain is coming from areas where you should not have pain, even if you haven't experienced something like this prior, then it can be just really days or even hours. In an emergency room, of course, they do all the scans on the spot. So this is something I think that's different or similar on the waiting time, but also, of course, we have the social system and the private situation. So you can, in Berlin, if you have the $800 or 1,200, whatever it may cost, however long the MRI takes, you can go there the next day, right? So
Wow.
out of pocket, this would always be an option, but waiting for the insurance, so there's no blocking by the insurance. It's really just the waiting time for having a general practitioner recommend to do it and then getting an appointment. Yeah.
That is a little different. Everything here is pretty much run by the health insurance companies. So a lot of times you have to get approval from them to make sure that it's covered, because it is so expensive to have that type of imaging done. I know for Mike, we were able to get it done. It was, ironically, it was do it now and ask forgiveness later kind of thing.
Yes.
So the surgeon we worked with that I'm really good friends with, he just said, we're doing the MRI. We're going to get it done and we'll deal with insurance after the fact. We need to get this done. And so, if you're lucky enough, and I talk about this often, that you have to be your own best advocate when it comes to healthcare and self-care. You have to be able to have the right team of people around you. And if you're fortunate enough to have neurosurgeons like the one Mike and I had, it's amazing because they're always in your corner and they listen to you. But not a lot of doctors are like that. Some are like, oh, no, I got to play by the rules, or, I don't know if this is what it is. Or they're not understanding or hearing your questions. They're kind of bypassing things. And so it's important. It's important to be able to voice what your concerns are and have a speedy answer to them.
Yeah, same thing was coming to trials in the end, right? Or especially for everybody being in crisis, nobody knows the exact process from what to do next. You really want to push a button. You really want to push a red button out of hospital or out of wherever you are at this very moment when it happens, and then everything should run smoothly, which doesn't. So if you have no support system or a bad one, then this doesn't work out. And for me, it's something also I want to push with my channel in the end, is talking about trials, talking about the ethics behind, like everybody knows about trials.gov and everybody knows where to find, but it's not properly communicated for people who are starting their journey. And I know that journey sometimes seems off because it's always also a horrible ride. Journey always seems like really a nice place to be and something you're looking forward to. But people starting whatever the GBM situation is are really thrown off the bus or under the bus, do not know.
You're kind of thrown into the deep end right away without really learning how to navigate, learning how to swim. And clinicaltrials.gov, well, it's a great resource to have. It is extremely hard to navigate. And it's something that I communicate often on my channel and in a lot of the patient advocacy work that I do. Even if you're able to navigate it, you don't always understand what you're reading. And so it's really invaluable to have resources and people that can help you navigate what you're reading in the trials. Is this trial even going to be a good fit for us? Is this something he'd even or she would even qualify for? And I'm glad there's so many. I'm so glad that there are so many trials, but you could have 100 trials and really only qualify for 3. So,
True.
And then you have to pick out of those 3, which one could be the best option for us. And, that kind of leads me into my next question. When your partner was diagnosed, how did you guys have any clinical trial options? Was there anything available at that time?
There was one option. We had to ask for it, so it was not really. It was the standard care at that time, but there was one option in a hospital in Germany.
Okay.
Problem was that it was over Easter, so that the first was actually like the first operation, the first surgery was around Easter time, and then there was a holiday. There was a few days of holiday where pathology and everybody processing whatever tumor there was, because we were in the belief that it was still something, slow growing on the WHO scale, a 1 or 2. This was something they told us prior, and also making the decision of you want to do the surgery or you want to wait 6 months to do an MRI and see what happened. So the second MRI would have never happened because it was GBM in the end. But yes, waited for a couple of weeks. There was the holiday in between, and once the conference, the tumor conference, came back with the results, this was 6 weeks and 2 days after the surgery, and this is exactly the cutoff date of 6 weeks for getting included as one of the parameters. And they were very strict, as we all well aware of, that in the clinical trials, sometimes it's not, oh yeah, please let us in, or please give us the opportunity. No, this is like, it's a pharma. Or there's parameters you need to get people to check those parameters. Otherwise, you cannot compare those statistics. And this makes sense, but it does sometimes not make sense out of an emotional perspective, right?
From a heart perspective, from an emotional perspective, it stinks. But from a scientific perspective, we understand it analytically. And those of us in the research community, me being one of them, from a research scientific perspective, I completely understand. From an emotional perspective, it sucks.
Yeah, this is the same thing, and this is also what I want to try to push forward. It's not like the personal hardship in the end, but it's also getting engaged in those clinical trials from a caregiver's point of view, supporting whatever clinical trials are running now in the future through the German system, through the European system, and hopefully in the end also ending up either way from the US in Europe, from Europe in the US, or on other continents. But this is something I really it's not communicated well, so I felt lost. But I mean, there was so much energy to do this as a young person. I always really feel bad for people catching GBM or different other kinds of tumor in the later stages of life. And when there's not so much flexibility, I can ask Gemini or ChatGPT or every other AI to put me in, through to what's the landscape, what's the state of the art, how can you communicate this in an easy language. So this is things I can do. But then if you just start this whole thing, then this is sometimes really feels impossible to handle.
Yeah. Are there any clinical trials in Germany or even in the Netherlands, quite honest? I mean, in the European area, have you seen anything that is really promising, that's kind of cutting edge, that you feel very excited about when it comes to the brain cancer space over there?
I do, but I feel too not medically expertise enough to give a comment on I would like to spread hope, but I'm also very aware of I mean, I can talk about this also on Morphin and Banana Bread. I can give links, but it's not something I would give a recommendation on, because this is so individual, and I have no medical background whatsoever. I'm an aerospace engineer. I like complexity. I like to dig into it. Make an expert opinion about it with your doctor yourself, because I feel this is something.
Yeah, I think that's always a disclaimer everybody should know. What's nice is, I think with some of my background in my previous fields, there was a lot of scientific qualitative research that had to be done. So it's nice because I can understand different scientific pieces of it because of the healthcare space that I've been in for so long.
Yeah.
But it's always good to say, these are the options. This is a possibility, but it's something you're going to have to then go over. And that, again, it always goes back to advocacy. We can give you the information. I'm more than happy to tell you this is what's here. And then you have to turn around and communicate that to your healthcare team and figure out what's going to be the best option for you. Because in the end, you're the only one that can advocate for the best options for you and your family. Everybody else can just support and give the best information that they have at their disposal or what they think could be really good. But you have to then take that to your healthcare team and translate that to them and figure out what's a good avenue to take
that's
from there.
true. And it's also like, I don't want to give a high level answer, which I did to a very, very straightforward question, but it's also like knowing to be on the other end, because when you get this first the first time the diagnosis of GBM, you take everything there is, and if there's someone like Robert coming your way telling you that, hey, there's a promising thing, you should definitely look into it if that's an option, if that's available for your if that's available also financially to potentially come over to Germany or have this imported through like lengthy approvals. But yeah, then this is something I feel the other way around, because I've been looking into clinical trials back then in Israel, at the Imperial College in London, in the US, and having made this huge map of what's possible. And this is, I think the second step is what is feasible in the situation, because for us it was a stroke. She got a stroke in the first surgery, and
she did.
so she was had aphasia, right? Like couldn't really find words, and also was paralyzed on the right side. So the option of going to a clinical trial on a weekly basis or twice a week or once a month, whatever the framework has been, is sometimes not possible. And I think having this quality of life versus whatever is possible scientifically is always something, and as you mentioned, a personal decision which only you and your family can make in the end. And then I think this is more like this is. I would really like to put emphasis on this, because it's not always what is possible. It's always what makes the most quality of life in the end. And to discuss this very thoughtfully and discuss this through with everyone involved is very, very important. To get something that's not only feels right, but it's also right for the person going through the GBM. Yeah.
And that's so important. It's such an important piece to highlight. And, I think you said it best when you said, the main message in all that is that there is possibilities. There is hope. There are things in Germany and in Europe that you're very excited about. And that's what we need. That's what we want right now. There's been so much movement, and you said it too. There's longevity. We're seeing people living a little bit longer and a little bit longer and a little bit longer. And it's not exactly what we want. It's maybe a year, maybe 6 months, maybe 2 or 3 years, but it's something. And it feels like the needle is moving. And so I think that is kind of the underlying message that everyone should take away from this, is that there are a lot of promising avenues. It takes a while to get there. I mean, a lot of these clinical trials have been in testing phases before they could even get to a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 clinical trial. They were in testing phases for 5 or 10 years. And so there's probably other clinical trials within the last 5 years that'll just be coming to light in the next couple of years, because they'll be moving into clinical phases. And that's exciting. And I think that's something we can all be excited about. And then there are a lot of complexities with that, but there's also a lot of tech that's being developed. There's a client I work with that's got this amazing, and we actually did a video on it. We went and did a live shoot, and they take these nodules and they actually place them on the head as they're opening the brain to see what lights up where. And they use that throughout the entire surgery to make sure they're not hitting critical areas of functioning, like speech, cognition, movement. Like let's say you have somebody that's a musician. Okay, well, we want to try to avoid that area so that they can continue playing music or using their fingers or
Definitely.
yeah. And I think that that is so inspiring to see because it means that they also, the surgeons know and understand the importance of quality of life, which is what you've been talking about. Yeah. So, so your partner passed away. How long ago did she pass away now?
It's been a year and 2
Okay.
months. So May 2024.
Okay. So a little over, so almost a year and a half. And as you've moved through the grief process, because you've talked about this quite a bit, and you and I have talked about this as a sidebar in the past. Currently, where are you at? Like, how have you moved through the grief process? Was there anything that you found especially challenging or surprising as you kind of moved through it after she passed away?
Yes. I can probably start away right with the yes on the surprising part. For me, I felt like I was really grateful and thankful for the time we had.
Mm.
I was full of energy to give back to the community and also like to spread the word more about looking after one another, right? It's not the big political or philosophical parts where you say, well, why are we not, if everybody holds a hand, there's a nice song to it. I'm not sure by which musician, but there's, if everybody holds one hand, then we are all holding each other's hands around the world, right? So in this
Yeah.
kind of situation where we've been through, where you've been through, it sometimes feels like weird to go back to normal. It's like a clock. The time in the past felt longer, shorter as days pass by. But I felt like this immense energy. I'm not sure. This is something. It was very, very weird because I've met with different groups of people physically and also virtually,
Mm-hmm.
and most of them have felt totally different to what I did.
Hmm.
Um,
I mean, I would consider that a blessing. I mean, yes, not everybody might have that kind of feeling after, but at the same time, the way you viewed her last few months as well. I mean, it's kind of a gift and it's really the way you talk about it is just very peaceful. And to be able to look at something like that with gratitude very quickly is a strength because gratitude is all we really truly have in this life. And it's something that we have to constantly work at and remind ourselves of, right? That this idea of being grateful for these little things, these little moments. I had a day the other day where I was filled with immense joy for the first time in years. And I just felt so good. And it didn't last the whole day. It was fairly brief, but I recognized it in the moment and then just kind of said, okay, thank you. Thank you for that because I'm grateful that I got to have that moment. And we have to practice. It takes practice.
and also, it doesn't mean that we always need to enjoy every little detail, right? Like sometimes I feel like just running with the train, which
Yeah.
is a transport vehicle we take a lot. But anyway, wherever you are, like if you go on the train, on the bike, on the truck, whatever it is, but like, and seeing a butterfly, I'm very peaceful. I really enjoy myself, and there's nothing more it needs to be added to just feel
Yeah.
very, very blessed and very, very, yeah, very happy. But it
Yeah.
doesn't also mean that there can be other times. So I don't think it was for me this toxic positivity saying everything is fine and we can give back energy. It's not the case. Like but it's also having different feelings on the same, like, what did I put it in words the other day was like sometimes like also like being in a parallel universe, right? You have two different tracks and both can happen at the same time. So like it is fully possible to feel joyful in this very second, sitting in the train, seeing a butterfly outside, and then the door closes, you go to the next stop, just metaphorically speaking, and then something changes, something triggers you, and I think this is something I also felt like giving back. There are so many voices in hospice, in the medical system, but also people going through those journeys that go unheard. And I did a lot of talks, a lot of caregiving community conferences, collaboration with research, and I still want to do this, like putting it more on a professional side, and trying to help also with logistics on last wishes, to designing new healthcare experiences. And this is something I felt it's not something I want to surprise myself or look away from whatever grief is. But also to give this a purpose. And I think this, for me, it makes sense. For others, and this can be as personal as it can get. There are so many varieties to it. People say, well, now we need like just this very the time and consume grief. And then others just say, well, I want to just enjoy life, which of course most people will not be able to just continue on. Just try to push it away, and then it backfires at some point potentially. But I think just embracing the moment and the situation as long as you got the time, but also not always focusing. This was very important, and I end my monologue there with the last sentence, is figuring out that not all medical things can be solved. So once we figured out that there's no trial, we can get included. But there's this time. We cannot say how long it is. We cannot change this time stamp. And everybody else not having glioblastoma also has this time stamp. I can have a car accident, whatever it is. But then being in the moment. And I think this is the same thing as you mentioned. We need to practice more, try to be more in the moment. We have so much input, and you know best with all the media expertise you got, that there's so much input on each and every individual in our community, in society, that sometimes it's hard to process. And it's also hard to process all the information about glioblastoma. So try to be just there for your partner, your friend, your kid, your grandma, your dad, whoever it is very, very helpful and very necessary to keep the quality of life, keep the dignity, and also keep the
it sounds like what you're talking about is staying present.
Present, that's a good word. Thanks. Yes.
Yeah, staying present, and that is very difficult to do, especially when life is speeding by so fast and when you're struggling with a diagnosis. And we are in a digital age, and with AI and everything else, it is too much information. So it's way too much information. I've had to really stop watching the news quite so frequently. I've turned off notifications on certain tickers for news things on my phone because it's too much. And you need to be able to stay present in the moment you're in instead of constantly looking backwards or worrying about down the road. So it's really vital that, and you say it beautifully, when you realize there aren't clinical trials that you can qualify for, that you can be part of, then you're able to then move on to focus on the next step. Okay, we don't have options for this. Now we can focus on this, and we have to just stay present in the path that we have right here ahead of us. And that's crucial for everybody to recognize. Within that, we're talking, and it leads to the next question so beautifully, because we're talking about staying present. We're talking about too much information. Within that, especially in the GBM space, but anytime there is a life-altering diagnosis that hits somebody super close to you or yourself, we are human beings. And so it is very easy to have triggers about what's happened. And especially when you've lost somebody. And I don't know for you, but I know for me, if I've had, and I don't get headaches very often, so if I have the slightest little headache, I go into panic mode because I wonder if, could this be, something like GBM? And I have an eye doctor that I see, and every time I go in, he laughs because he'll say, oh, we see this, and it's just genetic and nothing to worry about. And I'll look at him and be like, no, Shannon, there's no tumor. There's something going on behind your eyes. Everything is fine. And I don't even have to say anything. He can kind of tell by the look on my face. But it's hard not to. I think that's where staying present and being grateful in the moment you're in becomes even more crucial, more vital, right? Because those triggers can come up, anytime there's a little hiccup or you have a new phase, transition in life, and you're experiencing something you haven't experienced before. You wonder, okay, what is this? Because you've been through such a hard journey with losing somebody. How do you feel about that? Like, have you had any of those moments where those triggers have come up for you?
I mean, you mean those, what if this headache is something worse or more than just a headache? Definitely. So I think, yes, of course. I mean, there's, for everybody out there, and including myself, there's dark days, or like where you sit, where you are in your bed and you're like, oh, what's that? I haven't felt this, and I'm not sure whether it's age. Right now, I'm 33, so. But yes, definitely. But I'm trying the same as you mentioned, like being present and also treating my body as, with kindness. This seems sometimes a little esoteric or like just over the top, but it's not always like a system that can fail or is running smoothly, right? And I think this is something for also younger people. And of course, not everybody. And there's so many diseases out there that's hitting people from the very beginning of their lives. But initially, you're going to high school, you're going to university, college, whatever, and sometimes you feel that nothing can hit you, nothing can throw you off your feet or whatever. And this is exactly when you're like, if you not had something before. And then we all did, but then you really think about it, and it's like, well, do I need to do this? Is this really as important as I think it is? Is this deadline and the priority zero, which every task, everything we're doing is always priority zero nowadays? Is that really important, or is it just fine to have a little nap, or just not do it today? And it's not best done tomorrow, but it's still just trying to figure out what your system, your body actually is all about. And it's always changing and dynamically. You have to adapt and mitigate what's coming your way. Even if mitigating what's coming your way, if it's the journey we've been through, not really the right wording for it. But this is something also caregiving and has taught that there's this myth about caregiving and self-care, which you should take care about yourself. Everybody will tell you this, and it's really hard to sometimes not get mad because you're like, why would I? Because this is a person I love. This is the person I really like. This is the person I'm caring right now for, whoever it is. And then saying, well, I have to step back and just take your time doesn't work. But on the other hand, you are well aware of that you also need to rest, because otherwise you're patient B, or however you want to frame it in the end. And I think this is definitely something that's still hitting me today, that at some times like, oh, I never had this. Like there's a migraine coming and, oh, I had never had migraine. I cannot read those little letters. I cannot put together a word. And then it's like, oh, we had this in a different way. Then I always try to breathe.
Yeah, it's important to remember that. It's important to, and I think that having this conversation normalizes it for all of us in this space, because whether it's GBM or a different type of cancer, it's normal to have those triggers as the one left behind. It's normal to be scared or to question because it knocked at your door. Something happened to somebody close to you and you've now seen it up close. So It is very common to feel that way. But as you said, it's also finding that balance and doing self-care and checking in with yourself and realizing too that for every pain or twinge that comes along that feels off or odd, there's also the twinge and the pain that comes from just getting older. And as we age, our bodies are going to act and respond differently than they did before. And so it is finding that balance and being able to self-talk and self-regulate during those moments. You talk about this in a really nice way. And so I'm curious, you've touched on this throughout the interview. You have a real drive to support other caregivers in your community out there. So how are you working on turning your pain into purpose within your community? What are some things that you're excited about? Because you did mention a nonprofit. And so what is it that you're working on or that you would like to be able to do for those in your community?
That's a good question. I've started this project, Morphine and Banana Bread. And what I'm trying to do is actually two things, because I'm doing a podcast as well, but I'm doing a vodcast basically. I'm trying to get or going through hospice facilities in Germany and then eventually in Europe and wherever this might lead to, and record people in hospice, which they have a few weeks, a few days, a few hours, a few months ahead to live. And they are very, very honest, to the point it can get scary on the positive and on the negative side, on very beautiful things they are proud of. But it's two things that I want to give a voice to the ones often unheard. But then also, and this is something that's very hard, and I know that you are doing a wonderful job with everything you did in media, and many other people trying the same thing or doing the same thing, not trying, but getting people to understand that everybody has just a limited time. So that you can write a book, you can do a Netflix series, which I would also like to do. I don't need to have money face on this, but I have strategies. I have strategies and ideas to do that, and also with Last Wishes, we could brilliantly put in the picture. But it's something you can hardly get across, so that people are actually reflecting on it. That people are taking this as, oh, this could happen to me, or I'm not in a very bad situation right now. Let's still discuss topics. Let's still talk about what would happen if, not all day, not every day, but to also be fair to those who are caring for you. Like if I would something would happen to me today, is there plan B, or is there something, is there, a big hole coming to my family and friends? And I think those topics are very rarely touched upon in Germany, but also in our Western culture.
I think societally,
and this is something other societies can do better. But I'm not saying that there's a best way forward or best practice out there. But it's really something I would like to contribute to. So if there's project out there who need someone with a creative, strategic mind, just hit me up. Or I'm doing this podcast on hospice care. If this is something somebody would like to actually produce, let's talk, because it is always a one-person show. It would be nice to be a community show, or I don't need to have my name on their show.
Yeah, I think it's admirable. Those are topics of conversation that are really difficult to navigate and to talk about. And so being able to have open, honest communication in those areas is really vital. So I love that is something, that's where your passion is driving you, because we don't have enough people talking about those hard things when it comes to end of life care, which is something that I think we all struggle to talk about. There is positive, though, in all of this, outside of wanting to make a difference and an impact in that way. You've had a lot of positive things happening in your life lately. So I would love if you could share with everybody that is watching and listening what's been going on in your life that is really hopeful and positive and gives the rest of us hope and inspiration that this can happen for all of us. So yeah, if you want to share some of the good stuff that's been going on lately.
Yes. Probably like two things, like one personal thing and then something I think for the whole community out there. So yeah, I would have never thought of it after losing someone to think about all the dating space and everything. And but I did come across a very brilliant person over New Year's on a workshop trip with an study group. So we did all workshops. I did one was for death, actually 120 minutes workshop on death and living with death. And then there was alternative energy supply systems and from all sorts of topics we had workshops and yeah, I met Lisa, my new partner, which I moved to Utrecht in the Netherlands with in April, and also that's why I'm here in London. She's on an offshore wind energy project. I'm just supporting, and I think this is something we've discussed with Ellie, we've discussed with family and friends, we've discussed with Lisa for a long time, and this is something also in the parallel universe that it can happen both, and it's never something because I have many widow clubs I'm going to.
Yeah.
So there's like a young widow club Berlin, Germany.
Okay.
People from 20 to 50. It can be 60. It doesn't matter. It can be 15. That doesn't matter. But somewhere in between, people who lost their partner can come. And there's this vibe, like saying, well, this is too early or this is too late. And we all have these conversations where we have an opinion about something that's very personal to us. And I'm happy to share and also happy to get questions about it. But it's something where I feel like there's so much love is the only thing, and laughter maybe, that if it's shared, it's doubled. Or the more you share it, the more it grows, right? And it's not something I just tell myself easily because prior to that I would not have thought about it. But it's nice to see that there's so many options in the world and how things evolve, and you never have really you never fully have figured out what might come. Also in a positive way. Of course, there's so much negative and pain to it, and there's different ways that I wouldn't have never thought that I will be doing an intensive Dutch course in May last year. And here I am trying to figure out a very nice, very pretty language, which is still very hard to pronounce, even if German is already very harsh and sounds so. And on the other hand, it's really that people are really capable or incredible, compassionate, even when things get really tough. And I've seen what the community can do, what people are organizing for widows, but also for caregivers. And this is something, I feel it's not, that grief isn't the opposite of life. It's part of it. The same like death and being born. It's something where we just touch up on, and then there's life. But actually, this is like full life, or it's life at its full capacity, whatever. And I would really like to shape how we talk about it, how we talk ourselves through it, and how we do it together, and not talking about people, but with everybody involved.
Yeah, I love that. I agree with you 100%. I truly believe that as much as we would all love to go through life and just have everything be roses and daisies all of the time, life is hard, and it comes with hardships. It comes with mountains we have to climb. But without those hardships, without the grief, without those mountains that we have to climb, we don't grow. We don't learn. We don't expand our horizons. We don't expand our capacity for love, for empathy. You know, if all you've ever experienced is good things in your life, you don't appreciate it. You take it for granted because it's just always there. But the minute something hard happens, you appreciate it's I talk about, our weather here in Western New York, and I talk about our summers are amazing. They're gorgeous summers. If we had this weather all year long, I would never appreciate it the way that I do. But because we have such crappy winters,
Yes.
we get so much snow. When summer comes around, we're like, oh, hallelujah, thank God. Like, this is great. And there's joy in it and you appreciate it so much more. And that's what life is like. And, it's so vital. It's so vitally important that we understand that even though grief is extremely, extremely hard to walk through, the other side of that is the love that we had, the joy that we had, the memories we had, the experience that we had that brought us to that grief. But where would we have been if we never had it to begin with? And I think we would be wholly different people.
Yes, and also I think that this is the person we are now is through this whole journey as well. And it seems sometimes arrogant to say, but it's also the the capacity for self-reflection and to just listen in to other people telling their story, and is something that really fuels me with energy at times, because it's not that things change, that if you listen to other people and their problems seem slightly smaller than yours, that you compare yourself, but it's rather than the other way around, that you feel, okay, I totally understand. This is something that's for you personally a burden. This is for you a problem, but then trying to ask how they can put it in their perspective, not saying, well, this is nothing compared to what I have experienced, or this is something very, very interesting also to talk to other people, other widows and other people in the community, saying that it's more engaging rather than comparing and trying to do a competition out of it. So I'm very thankful to have also this experience, to see, well, that people are supporting one another no matter what their hardship is, no matter what they have experienced, because it's always different. It will never, ever, ever be the same, and there will always be someone who has less, who has more hardship, and someone who is from the outside, from social media point of view, better off, and has more, or has a greater life, more healthier life, and so on. So yeah, this is something I really like to see in the community, and really find fascinating that this is the case, that people are coming together and not it's not dividing people, so to say.
Well, Robert, this has been a very enjoyable conversation.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
It's very uplifting, and it's just been very hopeful. And even with the nuances of some of the hard things that we've talked about, rounding it out with all of the hopeful things that are going on in the community, and all of the things that you are doing out there to help people in your community, and seeing that you found somebody that can walk through this life with you, and everybody has given their blessing for the two of you, and it gives the rest of us a lot of hope that it can happen for us, and that we don't have to keep walking through this life alone, because it's very hard. So I'm happy. I'm thrilled, in all honesty, to hear that there are so many good things going on for you, and I'm grateful to know you. It's every time you and I talk, I feel like I learn something new, or I get a new perspective or a new thought. So I'm very grateful for that. This has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation. And if you would love to share, with our followers where they can find you, or if they would like to know more about you or follow you on social, if you want to share where people can find you.
Yes. Thanks, for the invitation. First of all, it's the same thing. I can just give it back. That it's really empowering to chat with you, and just to have this conversation. I hope there's many more things we can create. create together, but let's stay let's stay in the moment, be present. And yeah, if anyone listening is working on something, research, ethics, caregiver advocacy, or like hospice care, please reach out. The platform, and I think everything related to it, is on morphineonbananabread.com. So it's morphine on banana bread. And the story, just cut short, is that I took the first time Ali got morphine was on banana bread in 41,000 feet altitude, going from Qatar to Auckland in New Zealand for the last journey. And this is why this all came together. Yeah. And I do bring the experience full of energy. I also, I'm always happy to, create something new and try to make something happen in the community. It's not a full nonprofit yet, because I'm still in aerospace, sustainable aviation matter. But if there's some idea coming around, I am 100% a co-founder, a good strategist, an open ear all the time. So yeah, morphineonbananabread.com, and there's also
and I'll have
Instagram
it for everybody.
And
I'll have that for everybody. I'll put it up on our website. I'll make sure everybody knows where they can find it.
Cool.
Robert, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your thoughts and your wisdom and your journey, your personal journey. It means so much to so many, and I'm grateful that you were able to make the time for us today.
Thanks for inviting me, Shannon, and have a great rest of the day. For me, it's evening. For you, it's morning.
Yeah, I was going to say, for you, it's almost it.
Hashtag weather in London. Hashtag weather in New York. Yeah. Thanks so much.
Exactly.
Appreciate it.
Exactly. Thank you so much. And to all of our followers, stay tuned because we will be right back. So today, what I decided to do was take a really common recipe, tuna noodle casserole. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to list the ingredients for you that it already calls for, and then I'm going to tell you what ingredients to swap it out with to make it a healthier recipe for you. So the ingredients we already have listed on here are unsalted butter. I tend to use Smart Balance butter. It's a little bit healthier, and I always cut the recipe in half when it comes to the amount of butter they call for. Yellow onion, salt, and freshly ground black pepper. Now, I always tend to use sea salt, and I always want to use iodized sea salt. And the iodization is really good for your thyroid health. You want mushrooms, sherry, cooking sherry, soy sauce, flour. Now with this, I use wheat flour instead of white flour, and this is where we're going to substitute, and I'll explain why. The recipe calls for chicken broth, milk, lemon juice, peas, canned tuna in oil, egg noodles, grated Parmesan, and breadcrumbs. Now here are the ingredients that we're actually going to be swapping out. So the first ingredient I really want to talk about is the wheat flour. Now, some of these recipes aren't going to be made for everybody, because those of you who have celiac or might be gluten-free would have to substitute something like almond flour instead of wheat flour. But for those of you who can, wheat flour is actually much healthier than white flour, and the recipe typically calls for white flour. Wheat flour is not as highly processed as white flour is. That makes it much healthier for you in general. Because it's not refined and because it's not as heavily processed as white flour, it has higher dietary fibers. It has higher vitamins in B1, 3, and 5, and it's also lower on the glycemic index for blood sugar. The other ingredient that we're going to swap out is the tuna. So the recipe calls for tuna in oil. We're going to use tuna in water. Now, tuna is a great source of protein in general, but the tuna in water is lower in cholesterol and higher in omega-3s. And it's also lower in fat because it's not in oil, it's in water. I also tend to use mushrooms, more of the mushrooms than the peas. I do this for two reasons. Number one, I love mushrooms, so I put a higher quantity of the mushroom in the tuna noodle casserole than I do versus the peas. Mushrooms are a great source of protein, potassium, niacin, and a key ingredient, selenium. Selenium is an antioxidant mineral. It's not found in a lot of vegetables, so the ones it is found in, it's a rich source of antioxidant. It's a really great healing mineral and actually can help combat a lot of different diseases. It's also found in fennel. It's very high, there's a very high concentration of it in fennel. So I love mushrooms.
Now peas are great in this recipe, but peas, just like carrots, are higher in natural sugars. So I tend to cut the peas a little bit in half and I add more mushrooms to the dish. Now, the other ingredient it calls for is chicken broth. Chicken broth is chicken broth. You can pretty much buy whatever brand that you like. I always make sure though that I look for less sodium, because you can always control the salt that you put into the dish on your own, kind of taste it and go with what feels right to you. So it's always better to get chicken broth that's less sodium, and then you can add a little bit more salt and pepper to taste as you go along. Now it calls for egg noodles. Egg noodles are a really easy noodle to make. They're very quick to cook, and there's actually nothing wrong with egg noodles. They're low in cholesterol and they're actually considered a heart-healthy food. So the egg noodles are a great call to the recipe, and I think it's a great idea to use egg noodles because they're heartier and it kind of mixes everything together and just kind of takes all the mushrooms and the peas, and it actually holds the dish really well. The other thing I swap out, the recipe calls for cheddar cheese. I use sharp Parm aged Parmigiano cheese. The reason I do this is because aged cheese actually has less lactose in it, so it's easier for me to tolerate. It's also lower in cholesterols, lower in sugars, and a lot of the aged cheeses tend to be part skim. So they're lower in fats than some of your other cheeses like cheddar and soft cheeses. The other thing that the recipe calls for that I really love is cooking sherry. Now, sherry isn't used a whole lot in dishes anymore. A lot of chefs still use sherry, but the big thing is that you have to reduce the sherry down when you're cooking it. Now, the sherry is put into the mushrooms when you're making the dish before you add the roux. And the roux is what the flour is going to be with the butter. Those are the ingredients I swap out. It's not very hard to do. These are simple things that you can keep in your house all the time. And for a dish like tuna noodle casserole, it's very easy to swap out these ingredients for the one ingredients that they call for in the typical recipe. The other thing too is that tuna noodle casserole is not that hard to make. It's really quick, very simple, and it shouldn't take you more than a half an hour to 40 minutes, including prep time.
You've been listening to the Game on Glio podcast, the podcast that is designed to educate, advocate, and tell the real stories of those walking the journey of brain cancers such as glioblastoma and grief and loss. Like what you hear? Share us with others. Follow us on Instagram at Game on Glio Podcast, Facebook at Game on Glio, or visit our website or YouTube channel. You can find us anywhere podcasts are played.